Micah, you're back again. I love these little visits, especially when you get good questions. I know you'll have a good one for today. What is it?
Well, you told me once that you believed in the resurrection of Jesus. Because of the evidence that was there. What evidence were you talking about?
All right, you don't let me get away with it. I did say that, I remember, and we didn't have time to give the evidence, so we'll talk about that. Well, Mike, you know, the evidence for historical events like the resurrection of Jesus, it's really not like the proof you find in some branches of mathematics. Some of the scientific proofs in physics and maths are a little bit different, so it's really not that kind of evidence. In cases like this, what you have to do is collect what I call cumulative evidence. It's not just one piece of evidence. You actually gather all the clues together, and you get them together, and then you find the best explanation that's most unifying. By that I mean, which explanation ties all the pieces of evidence together to make a convincing whole. So it's a different kind of evidence. Hey, do you ever read detective stories?
Occasionally.
I know you like fantasy, but I like detective stories. You know why I like detective stories?
Because they have to find all the clues?
Well, that's right, because I like clues. If you read a detective story, you got to look at all the clues, and it's only when you put them all together that you find out, well, who did it. That's a bit like the evidence for the resurrection. The first thing about scientific evidence is that most of it is based on observation, and we got the evidence of our eyes, but that's the neat thing about the resurrection. Just like in science, you begin to understand nature by observing it. It's very interesting to notice when it comes to the resurrection, it was two women that discovered the empty tomb on that first Easter day, and they immediately ran back to the disciples and said, "You come and see the place where the Lord lay." And if you read the book of the Gospels, you'll see that. They ran, they looked in, they didn't expect the event, they couldn't explain the event, but there they ran and they saw the evidence. And what you read about later is they walked along talking about what had happened. So it was observational evidence of something that happened. Although they didn't expect it, they couldn't explain it. You probably don't expect this, but I want to show you something, Micah. Maybe you're feeling thirsty. This is not pop, it's only water, but I'm going to pour it in here. And I'm going to pour that in there, and my goodness, what has happened? I don't spill a drop. It's become solid. Can you explain it?
No.
Did it happen?
Yeah.
We keep trying to say whether you can explain it or not, it happened. That's very simple. You know what that is? It's just the stuff they put in baby diapers. That's why they don't leak anymore. Polymethyl methacrylate. Just absorbs the water. It won't bother with the chemistry. But you see, why you believe it, it's because you saw it. And for the observed and well-documented miracles of the New Testament, we have the testimony that they saw it, but it also said, but God raised him from the dead. Now that's very important. You see, resurrection from the dead without God's intervention is something I couldn't believe as a scientist. It's God's involvement in the resurrection that makes all the difference. That's why when Peter was preaching in the early church, he said, why would you think it incredible that God would raise the dead? And if you leave God out of the picture, of course, you wouldn't believe it. So there's a lot of evidence, can't do it all, but there's been all fanciful alternatives to explain the empty tomb, which is a really important evidence. But remember, it was guarded and sealed. I mean, very improbable, those kind of stories like the disciples maybe stole the body. You think about this, nobody ever produced the body of Jesus. Do you think Christ's enemies would like to have got hold of the body?
Yeah, so they could prove he was dead.
Exactly. If they could have had the body, it's game over, right? And they could say, look, this story's got to end, he's dead. They never could do that. Why? Because it was nobody. And that's very important evidence. Of course, one problem is that people don't look at the evidence, and that's what I've been urging you to do all the time. Don't presuppose, but look at the evidence. You know, I talked about witnesses. It's not just a few disciples. The Bible said there are over 500 witnesses over a period of 40 days. So you don't have 500 people hallucinating or doing it repeatedly. So the evidence is very strong. And you think about these disciples. I mean, they were huddled in little rooms. They were scared, and Peter was denying he even knew Jesus and all that. After Jesus rose, what happened to the disciples? When he ascended to heaven, do you think they were still scared?
No, they were bold.
Yeah, they were out there as bold. You know, they were ready to die for what they knew was true. You wouldn't die for a lie. If you knew it wasn't true, you're not going to give your life for that. You've got to believe it's true. They were within a stone's throw of the empty tomb, and they went boldly proclaiming Jesus Christ is risen, and nobody could gainsay that. So that's the kind of evidence. There's a lot more, but given the number of witnesses, the sudden transformation of these disciples, the growth of the early church, you wouldn't have the church growing if it was all based on a myth, all that combines together to help me to conclude it's really true, Jesus is risen. There's more evidence, but that'll do for today, because I got to check what you've learned today from Grandad. What did you learn today from Grandad?
Well, when you put all the evidence together, the best explanation of the empty tomb is that Jesus rose from the dead.
You got it, and that's what we have to do. Maybe another time I'll give you more evidence, but we made a good start. Thanks, Micah.